Hello, welcome to Mindfunda. My name is Susanne van Doorn. I'm a Dutch psychologist and blogger on mindfunda.com. If you go to mindfunda.com, you can sign up for my email newsletter and you can download a free ebook about mutual dreaming, because a couple of years ago I did a very interesting experiment about mutual dreaming that will show you that a dream is not only about you, and you can really meet other people in dreams. So don't forget to sign up. Please also sign up for my YouTube channel here down below. Don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, don't forget to ask questions. I will address all of them. Well, today I'm going to talk with a very special person named Wanda Burch, and she is the author of She Who Dreams, a beautiful book about how her breast cancer helped her to reconnect with the healing part of herself. And breast cancer is a very serious illness that strikes 1 out of 8 people in a lifetime and 150,000 people a year and kills 46,000. So today we will share a conversation about this very important topic. It's a couple of years ago that I've read this book and I was really moved to tears by it. So, hello Wanda, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me on your show.
Yes,
I'm delighted to be here. Yes.
yes. I wanted to tell people who don't know yet that Robert Moss is your dream brother, shaman and healer, an active dreamer. He's your dream brother. And you had a precognitive dream you tell about in She Who Dreams, about meeting him in a dream before you met in real life. Can you tell us something about that?
I can. I actually physically met him in probably around 1985 or so. He had come to Johnson Hall. It's a state historic site, 1763 historic site in Johnstown, New York. He came to do some research on Sir William Johnson. He was writing a book of historic fiction on Sir William, and dreams had led him there. So that's when I first met him. Several years later, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I was coming back and forth between appointments and stopping by his house. And Robert was helping me work on some of my early dreams that were helping me with imagery through my chemotherapy, through surgery and then chemotherapy. And we were sitting in the backyard, and he asked a question. He said, "What is the earliest dream you remember?" And I thought about it a moment, and I said, the earliest dream I remember in all of its details, I was probably about 9 years old. And I proceeded to describe to him a dream in which a young boy, about the same age I was in a boat, and he was near the shallow part of a river. And I was aware in the dream that this boy could swim. But he fell out of the boat, or something happened, and he ended up out of the boat and in the water. And he was in water that, in my mind, all he had to do was stand up. However, he was drowning. He couldn't get out of the water. And in the dream, I pulled him out of the water and pulled him up on the shore. And Robert sat there stunned for a while. And that's when he asked me how old I was and when I dreamed this dream. And apparently, he had a waking life experience identical to that. And he knew in this waking life experience, and he was a swimmer, he didn't even understand himself when he fell out of the boat why he couldn't get out of the water, but he knew he was drowning. He knew that something or someone saved him and pulled him up on the shore. And we talked about this for a while and decided that my dream and his waking experience had somehow connected across time and space, and that here we were many decades later discussing this dream in his backyard.
Yeah, wow, that's real magic. Eh? The fun thing about you and She Who Dreams is that you don't differentiate between a dream in the night and visual experience. That's one way that you used to heal yourself with visions you had. Um, She Who Dreams is a story about you recovering your healing abilities. Because you were born in a family of Celtic roots, and your grandmother had a profound knowledge of healing and herbs. And she went into the forest to gather them. And you have a profound connection to the healing forest yourself. Can you tell us about that?
Well, I went every summer to see my grandmother. I grew up in the South, and my grandmother was a healer in the Southern Mountains in Alabama. I knew that, and it probably didn't mean a great deal to me when I was a child. I knew that I went in the summer to see her, and one of the questions she would ask as soon as I would arrive was, "What kind of dreams do you dream?" or "Tell me your dreams." And she would always take my hands in hers, and we would talk about dreams. The spring, this was a farm in rural Alabama, so the water came from a spring. The spring was across a meadow, down a long hill, and then you went down to a natural spring, and there was a small meadow there, and there was a large kettle there. And growing up, I had a vague realization that this is where she did her healing rituals. But it had more of an impact on my mind and my dreaming probably at that time than it did in being able to see her physically do this. I knew that my great grandmother had been a healer. I knew that they both used herbs and rituals and a little bit of magic, that the kind of sort of spoken magic, sometimes using words and symbols and things that you write on pieces of paper. I knew that she did that. But backdropped against this meadow was a virgin oak forest. And I was always both intrigued by and repelled by it because it was dark and mysterious, and I didn't dare go very deep into it. I would just move just a little bit into it and back out. It was black as night in there. The trees were so thick and so close together and so amazing, but I enjoyed being down there. And she would also have other kettles down there that she would wash clothes or make soap or do all sorts of everyday chores with, and I would help her bring water up from the spring. And the importance of the forest in my mind and what I knew that she did when probably more when I was not around than when I was around, also spilled over after her death into my dreams. And when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, she was almost a nightly presence in my dreams. She was there for help, for healing, and for answering questions sometimes simple questions, sometimes complex questions that had a deceptively simple answer. One of my favorites was recalling one night asking her, "What is the soul?" and realizing both inside and outside the dream that that probably wasn't a question someone was going to answer, but she did. She did in an unusual way. For those who know what a black walnut looks like when it falls from the tree, it's a very complicated thing. It's not like the ones you buy in a bag in the store. And in the dream, I saw my grandmother, and she had her hand wrapped around something. It was folded over. And she opened it up, and it was a black walnut. And the black walnut has about 5 layers to it, or 4 or 5, something like that. And as she opened her hand, the first layer, which is green and usually turns blackish or brownish, is very easy to get off. You can peel it off, particularly after it starts to get a little bit mushy. And it peels down to another layer or so. They're equally easy until you get to a layer that is almost impossible to crack before you get to the basic walnut. So each time she closed her hand and she opened it up. And the last time she closed it over the black walnut and she opened her hand and nothing was there except essence. And the essence of the black walnut filtered through the air, and I woke up. And for
Wow.
me, that was an incredible description of my question of what is the soul.
Oh, wow. That is impressive. Wow. And the many layers of that cover the soul. It's beautiful. Wow. In what way was reconnecting with your healing self a connection to the goddess?
I think connecting with my healing self began with a series of diagnostic dreams. And I think the most important thing of, of discovering what you need for healing, and as far as that goes for everyday living, is begins with keeping a journal. And I don't know if this is a direct connection to the goddess or not, but keeping a journal kept me in touch with who I was and my dreams. It was actually Robert who encouraged me to begin writing every single day something in a journal, no matter how important a dream I had in the night or maybe how unimportant I thought something was during the day, to write it down and then to look back again and again and start finding the connections. If it had not been for that journal, I probably would not have recognized, even as soon as I did, that I was dreaming about a dangerous illness, a dangerous disease. And when I did realize that I was dreaming something serious and important, and I began to fight with doctors, I went back to that journal and discovered I had not been doing what I should have been doing. I'd simply been writing dreams down and putting them in the journal. I'd not been working with them. I'd not been trying to understand what they were. I'd been dreaming diagnostic dreams about breast cancer for over 2 years, and maybe longer than that, because that's when I began keeping the journal. And I looked at those, and the night before I went to a surgeon, I had a dream that pinpointed the exact location of the tumor, and I was blessed with a wonderful surgeon who held up a felt tip pen, gave it to me, and said, "Where is it?" And I drew on my breast where it was. And then he said, "Go home and do something about this." It was then that I realized that we all have a gift we can use. We can all take the imagery from our dreams and we can use that imagery in healing ways to help ourselves overcome an illness, to understand it, to overcome depression, or to simply um, just to have a sense of what we're going to do during the day, what a day is going to bring us. And so I went home, and this particular dream offered an image that I could use of putting this breast under running water. It had a vial in it of dark liquid, and I saw as I ran the water through it, the dark liquid running out into the sink. And I thought, okay, I can use this. I can sit and I can close my eyes and I can imagine over and over and over again that dark liquid, the tumor, the cancer, being confined and leaving the breast. And then I realized as my dreams changed that I could do that with all of them. And our dreams give us what we need. They gave me the images I need all through surgery, chemotherapy, sometimes in bouts of depression, and brought me through to the other end. And I guess I'm saying that the connection to the goddess is the connection to the doctor in the night, the the person, the stranger, whatever we're dreaming about, the healing guide, the animal, whatever comes to us in the night and brings us the images that we need for our healing and for our health.
And when you, a lot of times, because I'm very interested in healing and dreams myself, but a lot of times, just like you had, you see things in retrospect. And having been through such a life-changing experience as you have, what have you learned to be able to recognize healing dreams sooner?
Well, I think this was another situation where Robert was indispensable in the healing process. At the time I was going through chemotherapy, he was developing a process which he called lightning dream work. And when I would also go to these, this same sort of trip between the chemotherapy and his backyard became a place where I learned a great deal about working with my dreams. He was beginning to work with questions that you ask of a dream. And that's the thing that I had not done with the dreams that I had written in my journal in the 2 years before the ultimate diagnosis. I had not sat down with them. I had not tried to understand them. I just wrote them down. And now I work with every dream, or every dream that concerns me. There are a lot of dreams that are so, so obvious that they're about something that I'm asking myself in the night. There's something about the day, or they're frivolous enough that I know I don't really need to know that yet. They're interesting. Maybe I'll write them down. Maybe there's something a little bit elusive about them that I haven't had time to think about, but it's not serious. It's not demanding. It's not intense. So I can write it down and I can go back and look at it later and see if it reveals itself better then. But at that time, I was dreaming dreams that I really needed to understand. So we would sit down, and he was working with these questions, which began with, what are you feeling when you wake up? You give the dream a title, which I had not been doing in the journal. Now I give every dream a title. And when you give a dream a title, you're already saying something about it, and you're already saying something about your feelings. So you give it a title, you write down what your feelings when you wake up. A dream that might seem sort of so-so, if you're feeling upset about it or in some way tense or nervous, then you know that something else is going on. If there's a dream that someone else might think is serious or troublesome and you're feeling joy when you wake up, then something else is going on. So you need to understand your feelings when you wake up. And then you do a waking reality check. Is the person coming through the door really your mother? Or is it somebody else? Is it something else? Is it a metaphor for something happening in your life? Is your house really your house? Or as oftentimes in the case of my dreams, my house is often the state of my body. But occasionally it's my real house. And I need to pay attention that there's something going on in my real house or my real car. A car in my dreams. Sometimes it's my body or something that's happening in my life. Sometimes it's my car, and I need to go out and see what's going on with the car in the driveway. So you've got to think about waking reality. Do I recognize the place? Do I recognize the things I see? Do I recognize the other people? Is there something in this dream that could literally play out in my day or in my future? Dreams have a tricky habit sometimes of not necessarily coming clear in the day or the week or the month afterward. I've dreamed dreams that I've looked back and it's been 7 years, 10 years, but I was still dreaming precognitively. I dreamed of an enormous fire in Johnstown, New York. I dreamed the dream in the year 2000. In exacting detail, the experience happened almost to the words said in the dream between me and other people in 2007. 7 years lapsed, but when that fire occurred and was so large, it registered on the Doppler weather channel as a storm. Then I remembered that I had dreamed about that fire. And I began looking back through my journals, and at that time I had them on my computer, so I could just type in a search on the word Johnstown, and I found it almost immediately. And it was 7 years earlier. And it was absolutely exactly as I dreamed it. So don't discount something that you think is impossible, which I thought this was, and don't discount something that you don't understand at the time. Write it down and let it sit there. And it's sometimes incredible how absolutely precise that kind of dream can be. If you have a dream buddy, a dream friend, the next helpful piece is to play a game, If It Were My Dream. And you never give your dream away to anyone. It's always your dream, no matter what. But it's always useful to have somebody say, if this were my dream, I might remember such and such a thing, or I might want to know more about something happened, a specific thing happened in the dream, or I might want to know more about that woman that's over in the hallway, or I might want to know this or that. And it allows both of you to explore the dream together. And sometimes that person might have something that's right on, and sometimes not. And you can take that information and advice or not take it, and maybe put some notes down in your journal with it.
Yeah, that's so important, a dream group or dream buddy, like you say. Yeah. Your book is divided into three parts, and part one is got a beautiful title called Moving Through the Dance Hall. It's like you are moving with your shadow in a dance that could be a dance of death, but also could be a dance of joy, but there's movement, there is change. So, can you tell us about something about that first part of your book?
That dream was a recurring dream in my life, and it first appeared when I was a teenager. In high school, actually, maybe the 11th or 12th grade. It appeared over and over again throughout my life, not consistently, but just began to show up now and then, and consistent enough that I recognized it. I knew this was the next version of the dance hall dream. It began not quite so ominous, but became more so as the dreams progressed. In the first depiction of the dream, or my memory of the first dreams, I was doing, as you said, I was dancing down a hallway, and there was a door at the end of the hallway, and I didn't quite understand what the door was. As the dreams progressed, I began to realize that that door it was a gateway. That door led to my death. And I wasn't quite sure when this was going to happen, but I began to have a sense that I was young when it happened. And then as I moved out of high school and into college, my classmates went through the Vietnam War. Many of them died. My graduating class in high school was quite large. It was 400 people. So you had a certain number of people who died of illnesses, and several people who committed suicide, one person who was murdered. So as people began to die, they began to show up in the doors, the side doors of this dance hall. And then I realized something else was going on. This wasn't just a dance, like a party dance. And then the last manifestation of this dream, I was dressed in a wedding gown, and I was dancing down the hallway toward my death, and I saw a newspaper on the floor, and I picked it up and had a date on it, and I knew that I was 43 years old when I died. When I was diagnosed with breast cancer, I was 42, and this dream felt like at that time that it was written in stone, that I had no choice. And one of the things that I realized I needed to do and understood by then that I could do was change a dream. I didn't have to die when I was 43 years old. I had to do something to get rid of the dance hall dream so that it would never return. And then I think that's the story you ask a little bit later, is the rest of that story.
Yes, but do you think that life is predetermined? Or do you think that we can change? Or is it both? Are there things that are predetermined and some things that you can change?
That's a good question. I think in my own life, I might have once believed that things were predetermined. I don't believe that any longer. I believe from my own experience that you can change things. You might have to recognize them first and you might have to recognize that there's something in them that you can change. And yet, and yet you hear stories and you think, could that person have changed the way their life was going? There's all sorts of wonderful tales in mythology of people who are given a second chance and they do things an entirely different way, but they come to the same place at the same time at some point in their lives and they haven't been able to change anything. Does that happen? I don't know. But I do believe that I changed my life. I do believe that I avoided a death that may have appeared to be predetermined in that dance hall dream.
Yeah. The second part of your book is called Rewriting My Sacred Contracts. And I love that because one time I had a dream about a fountain pen that was flying through the air, that was writing down what seemed to be a contract, and there was a signature under it, and then I woke up. Just like you, a sacred contract. Can you tell us? Yes, it was a great dream. Can you tell us about a little bit about that second part of your book and how you rewrote your contract?
I believe it began with, I believe it manifested in two dreams, or at least part of it began in one dream and then culminated in a second one. The first dream I called the healing pool at Bethesda.
Yes.
And
I love that.
I woke up from, and this was what Robert would call a big dream. I woke up from a dream and I saw a Bible verse. And I didn't remember the Bible story, but the Bible verse I opened to, was John 5. And I knew where I was. I knew I was at the healing pool of Bethesda. And I don't even know that I had ever read the entire story. I don't know that I'd paid attention to it very well, even if I'd read it. But I had walked to the pool. The pool was dry. And I was looking at the steps. I saw steps. I saw a portico up above. I saw people standing and some sitting. And I realized that I needed to do something there. I walked up and I looked up and there was an angel. And I don't dream about angels, but I was dreaming about an angel. And I have a friend who dreams about angels all the time. That's not my dreaming style. So this was a surprise. There's an angel standing there. And the angel is reaching out her hand, and I don't know what to do. I realized I had to take the hand, and then the water rushed into the pool, and we walked into the pool together. And I came out of the pool, and I knew that I was okay. I knew that I had been healed. I think if I had had the confidence in that dream that I should have, I probably could have stopped right then. I probably could have stopped the chemotherapy. I probably could have stopped and said, it's over. And I think it was. I proceeded with all of the traditional medicine all the way to the end. But I think that was the point at which I was healed. And I got up and I opened the Bible and I read a great deal the next few days about the healing pool of Bethesda. And I realized several things, that the people who were healed in the biblical story of the pool of Bethesda first had to take the hand that was offered them. And they had to participate. They couldn't just sit by the pool. All sorts of things had to happen at the same time. The water had to rush in at the same time that you entered the pool, which happened in the dream. You had to accept the help that was offered, but you also had to take responsibility for yourself. You had to get up, you had to take the hand, and you had to go into the healing waters, and you had to make it happen yourself, as well as accepting the hand that was offered to you. And the hand could be anybody in any dream. It's also a wonderful dream to give to a friend who needs to take a journey, because you can lead them on a guided meditation to a healing pool. I once did this with a woman, and she had severe arthritis. And she was laughing because what she saw was a cat when she got to the healing pool. And she thought, oh, well, I'm supposed to go in with the cat, right? But just as she reached for the cat, she looked up, and it was her good friend who owned that cat who was standing beside her. So she took her friend's hand, and she began to use that as a meditation, taking her friend's hand and going to the end of the healing pool. And it helped her with her pain in the mornings when she got up, and she was able to use the healing waters. So as I moved forward from that dream through the year, my birthday came. My birthday's in March. I was 42. I was now approaching 43, the year that I would die in the dance hall dream. It was on my mind, heavily on my mind. And I had another dream that was even more terrifying. I dreamed, very simple dream, a messenger came in the night and said, you're going to die. Basically, you're going to die. And I woke up and I didn't, I knew that things were going well medically, but also there was something wrong. I didn't know what to do because I didn't think that I was going to wake up on my 43rd birthday and just be dead, but I knew that there was somebody giving me a message that was not a good message. I sat for a long time thinking about that, and I thought, what do you do with something like that? And then I thought, okay, what you do is you need to go beyond the messenger. This is a messenger. This isn't the person in charge of everything. This is the messenger. I have to get beyond this messenger. So every single night I went to bed with an intent. I asked to go beyond the messenger. I needed to survive. I wanted to survive. And then I woke up from a dream that was so extraordinary. I've never had a dream like this one. I came downstairs. When I walked downstairs, I remembered all of it. Details were already beginning to fade as I came down, but the basic pieces of the dream were absolutely emblazoned in my mind. I was sobbing. I sat on the sofa for a long time. And what I had done, I had indeed gone beyond the messenger. I felt myself rising from my body. I felt myself moving up the side of a mountain, moving rapidly and then slowing down and moving rapidly. And I finally came to the top of this mountain, and there was a light so blinding, so brilliantly blinding that I could not look up. And I was at the feet of someone, something that had such incredible power I could not look in its face. And I realized I was being shown a contract. I was to have died in my 43rd year. I was being offered a new contract, a renegotiation of my life contract, which I accepted. When I woke up, I didn't know how many years were on this new contract. I didn't know what the end date was, but I knew that I was not going to die in my 43rd year. The dance hall dream was gone. The messenger of death was gone. And I felt that I had things to do now. But there was something that came with the contract. It was a responsibility, just like in the healing pool. It was responsibility to give back in whatever ways I could do that. I think writing the book was one of the ways I did that. I joined advocacy groups, breast cancer advocacy groups. I became a member of the staff in a group called Creative Healing Connections. We do arts retreats, and I do dream work as part of those arts retreats for women surviving chronic illness and for women veterans. And I began to participate in every way that I could that defined for me what giving back was. And that was the other part of the contract.
Wow.
And that was 25 years ago.
Yeah, and I want to thank you so much for that dream about the healing pool, because I use it when I'm not feeling well. I use it as a meditation. I sit there and I feel the tension from, can I get in? Because it's very important to know when you are allowed to get in there, and is the water coming, and who's going to take my hands? And I use it, and it's so powerful when you are in the water, just like the girl on the front page of your book. That's from that dream. I love it. I love the meditation. So thank you very much. It was really a big dream. The last part of your book is about bringing dreams home. That's about your renegotiated contract to reconnect people with their own healing abilities. And my question was, could you tell us something more about that? But you just did.
I just did.
You just
and
did.
and and
But
also part of the exciting part of that is people discovering their own ways of working with dreams.
yeah,
And particularly in the arts retreats, I have so many stories now of people who've explored their dreams in techniques also I've learned with Robert, dream theater, dream reentry, and just incredible methods of going back inside and bringing back from those experiences images, are dreaming their dreams forward, moving their dreams forward, and making things happen right there in front of everybody. And it's so exciting to watch people uncover um, the pieces, parts of a dream that they need to understand, and then to allow them to move forward into something else, into a understanding that they didn't even realize was there inside the dream. So that's exciting to watch.
yeah, yeah. I did a panel on dreams and health, and Sandy Ginsberg was on it, and she's an artist, and she suffered from cancer in her uterus, and she had a dream about a really angry plane that grabbed her, and she drew a picture, and then it became clear that her doctor had to check her uterus, that there was something really bad about it because of her painting, and that made it very clear to her. So the connection of art and dreams is very appealing also.
Oh, yeah. There was one of the women that I talked to, decades ago now, was an artist, and she didn't remember at the time a dream of diagnosis, although she was sure that she remembered that she was having them. And but what she was doing, she wanted to take a refresher art course, and she went to a local college, and the professor gave them a theme, and she was sitting there in front of this canvas, and she began to draw a dot with a circle around it, and a dot with a circle around it, and a dot. And it had absolutely nothing to do with her assignment. And she was even puzzled herself. She came home and she brought the pulled out another canvas, and she started drawing, and she was drawing the same thing, and she realized she was then drawing a breast, and the breast was becoming more obvious. And then she realized she was drawing a tumor in the breast, and she even knew where she knew where it was, in the same way that I understood where mine was inside the dream, except something inside was speaking to her. And she made an appointment with the doctor, and she had breast cancer, and she had it in the place that she was drawing. So for her, it was almost like channeling a dream or a memory or something deeper inside herself, an intuition. It all comes from the same place. And she was drawing this on a canvas.
Yeah, our bodies are so knowledgeable about what we need and about what's bothering us. We have a mutual friend, and he's called Dr. Larry Burke, and he's working on a book about dreams and cancer. And he has asked us to read a message for people to send to them. Could you please be so kind to
I
ask?
wish he sent this to me. He said, Kat O'Keefe Canavas, and she has just written a book, by the way, called Radical Remission. And I are working on a book that will address dreams of all types of cancers. We are interested in collecting stories of anyone with a dream about cancer that proved to be true. It would also be of interest to know whether dreams were also helpful in the healing and recovery process. And he says, please contact me, Dr. Larry Burke, CEHP, and this is an email address, and it's BURK0001 at yahoo.com, or Kat, and her email is catcan, KATKAN, at comcast.net, and Comcast is spelled COMCAST. And then he says, see this blog for details about previous research. And it's a long blog, but it's basically www. Huffington Post, and then you do a / and Larry Burke, dreams that warn of breast cancer. You could probably just Google his name, and I think he didn't write this down, but I think his blog is Let Magic Happen. So you could probably,
His book is called Let Magic Happen. So
yes. Oh,
I think his blog is the same.
And I think if you put any of that in a search engine, you would come across him and the Huffington Post article and all of those things.
So it's a very good thing that he's doing such important work.
Yes, it is.
You are busy writing a new book.
I am. Yeah.
Tell us about it.
It's written, or at least the draft of it is written, and it now has a publisher, McFarland Publishers in North Carolina. I don't know the publishing date yet. I think we're probably a year away from that. But several years ago, I was in a conference on vernacular architecture in Savannah, Georgia. And this is one of those synchronistic stories. I went into a local bookstore, had some time to kill, and I was in the history section where I often am, and I pulled out a book of Civil War letters. It was an enormous book, one of those format books that are very long and thick. It was also $75, and I bought it because of the rest of the story. I opened it at random, and the first words I saw were, and I'll read this, the quote was, "Soldier mortals would not survive if they were not blessed with the gift of imagination and the pictures of hope. The second angel of mercy is the night dream." These words were written by Henry Graves in camp in Petersburg, Virginia in 1862. He proceeded to record a dream that was so evocative and so real that he demanded when he awoke to know where was his beloved and why she had abandoned him to the horror and the noise of battle. And he was describing sleeping on the pillow with her head beside his, and he made some reference to, can you imagine a downy soft pillow out in the middle of these woods or something. And he talks about his beard being next to her soft face. He goes on to describe walking with her in a grove and having peaches and the smell of the peaches. Everything about the dream was so sensory and so alive. And I flipped through the book, and the next thing I found, also at random, was a letter from a soldier named William Stilwell. He was reciting and recording a dream equally as real, equally as fantastic. And I'm thinking, okay, if I've turned to two dreams in one book, standing here in the middle of a bookstore, there has to be more. And I began searching for letters, which led me to archives, published journals, diaries, memoirs, genealogy websites, poetry, artwork, and I found I'd finally had to stop writing because they're endless. And I finally sat down at a site called Documenting the American South, just out of curiosity, because I knew that site had the archives of 11 universities. And I typed in the word dream. And I was anticipating that a lot of what would come up on a search engine would be the generic term of you'd never dream that I did such and such, that sort of thing. And I had millions of hits. And I was typing into the Civil War section. So I did a little test. I took the first 20 pages, and each page had 10 entries. Out of each 10 entries, at least 5 were real dreams, not just the generic use of the dream. It was an actual dream a soldier was recording on a battlefield. So for me, that said worlds of how important dreams were in the life of the soldier on the battlefield and of the family at home. They were trusted advisors of death, of war, of peace. This was a generation and a culture in America that believed in dreams. And they were particularly relevant. That home was romanticized, home was revered in that period. No matter what the actual reality was, it was still a place of refuge and safety. So the soldier, most of the dreams the soldier was dreaming was of home in some form or fashion. So for the soldier, no matter what the actual reality of home was, this was a place of safety. And dreams in this period of time were printed as poems, they were written as songs, they were painted, they were in journals and diaries, they were even the daily news in popular newspaper. One of them was a prognosticator, or was listed as a prognosticator in the Richmond Times of how the war was going. And the paper actually cited a friend's dream, and he had dreamed a fairly exact synopsis of the war at that time, who was winning and who was losing. So that was reported in the Richmond Times. So the letters carrying these dreams back and forth as correspondence gave them that same quality of immediacy and the same flawlessness of revelation as the increasing horror of the conditions of the actual reality of the war that began with hope for a short ending and seen as a jolly adventure, when the war first began. So for so many, before it was over, it became in waking reality a grim contest of terror that brought death, maimed body, disease, and living conditions that were just horrific as the years wore on. And these dreams, unless they were the dream that became the nightmare, and that too happened just as it happens in battle today. But the dreams that were of home, the dreams that were of food on the table and a loving family around them, this is what saved the mind and spirit of the soldier in camp and on the battlefield. When they became nightmares, you had something else that was happening. We call it PTSD now. The Civil War was the first war to actually try to diagnose PTSD. It was called soldier's heart. And a physician named DaCosta actually did a scientific study of what happens to the beating of a soldier's heart when their dreams become nightmares. And he was the first person to believe that something physical was happening to that person when they started seeing things that were not there, and when every moment of their life became a nightmare.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting book because you shared some stories on Facebook already, and they were really, really moving, really emotional parts. So I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you.
Now, is there a question I haven't asked you and you want to talk about?
I couldn't think of a question, but it set me thinking of, it has been 25 years since I was diagnosed and with breast cancer. And in that time, and also in my work as an advocate, and that work includes working with grants with the Department of Defense peer review team for breast cancer grant proposals. And that's been a wonderful experience for me. So I guess instead of thinking of a question, I was thinking of what has happened in that 25-year period. Even though the death rate is not that different, I think we are moving into territory that is exciting. We have medical science has learned to trust alternative methods of working with the mind, the body, and spirit. I mean, this is something thousands of years ago was considered normal. We had to sort of come full circle and come back around to understanding that the mind and the body and the spirit all and the soul all work together as one single unit. And I think that we've come leaps and bounds since 1990 even in understanding that and working toward that and having teams now in hospitals that take care of all of those things. And I think that's exciting. And I've watched medical science progress and be able to target, to be able to limit the kind of harsh drugs, the kind of harsh treatments that were given in 1990, and now they can tell exactly what kind of tumor you have and how to target it with things that work with the body, with the immune system, with everything that's going on inside your body in order to treat, detect, and defeat a cancer or some other kind of problem inside the body. So I think all of that's exciting. So I guess that's not necessarily a question not answered, but it's a future. It's a future, and it's us learning to look back and take all of the best parts of what we already had and move forward and add to that knowledge and to grow it and to bring all of these pieces together. And I think that is happening.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you for talking to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed it very much. It was lovely to see you.
And
I
to
hope,
see you.
yeah, I hope we can meet again one day. You
Oh,
know,
I
I
do.
had a dream about you that I was organizing a workshop for you in the Netherlands years
Oh,
ago.
okay. I like that dream. I like
Yeah,
that dream a lot.
yeah. So maybe, perhaps, the annual Dream Conference is in Rolduc in Kerkrade in the Netherlands next June.
Oh, now there's an idea. Okay, I'll have to think about that.
Yeah, it's lovely, Kerkrade. It's an old abbey where monks were. It was founded because of a dream that the minister had, the abt. The, oh, you're a cat person. Ah, your cat
Oh,
is behind you.
come in. His name
I'm a
is,
cat person too.
oh,
There
yes,
was
his name
what?
is Eddie. That's his window behind me.
Oh yeah, yeah. This is one thing that Robert said to me. You're a cat person. I said yes, you are right. You are a cat person too. I saw him just a minute ago. It was lovely.
Yes.
But anyway, thank you for being such a good interviewee.
Thank you.
You are talking really lovely. It was a joy to listen to you.
Oh, and
So
this was just great. Thank you so much.
yeah, I think now you want to have a glass of water. You've been talking so much. Well, Wanda, it was very nice to see you. Bye bye.